Hey there, neighbor. My name is Mara Ibrahim. I'm a sleep medicine fellow at Mount Sinai Hospital. A lot of patients have sleep apnea, and sleep apnea has a lot to do with breathing instability. One way we can understand this breathing instability is through loop gain. In this video, I'm going to go over the different components of loop gain. We're going to review a very unique analogy that's going to better enforce this. And finally, we'll tie this into how this affects patients with sleep disorders. So, neighbor, are you ready to learn?
Our respiratory system is modulated by chemoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, and neural inputs that, when working properly, allows for stable ventilation, maintaining a steady PaCO2. Loop gain is an engineering term that helps understand this feedback system. Like any feedback system, it responds to disturbances or deflections in the CO2 from the steady state level and tries to drive the CO2 back to steady state. In other words, loop gain is the ratio of the response to the disturbance over the original disturbance itself. Let's say an apnea increases the PaCO2 above steady state. When the system decreases the PaCO2 proportional to that increase, that is a condition of normal loop gain. This can be compared to the same apnea that increased the PaCO2 level above steady state, but now the system is overcorrecting and decreasing the PaCO2 much greater than the original increase, and that would be a condition of high loop gain. This is a depiction of the loop gain model and its different components. The input is the change in the carbon dioxide level above or below steady state. The controller detects these changes, then signals to the plant to either increase or decrease the carbon dioxide level to return it back to steady state. Now, the respiratory equivalents for the controller are our chemoreceptors. We have central and peripheral chemoreceptors that are able to detect these changes in the carbon dioxide levels. The plant is our ventilatory efficiency, and it's basically how good our pulmonary system is at increasing or decreasing the carbon dioxide level. A final component is the circulatory delay, which could be the delay carbon dioxide level that the lungs produced reaching the chemoreceptors. There have been multiple analogies to better understand loop gain. I here want to demonstrate this with a car. As you can see, this person is driving in a straight course, and they're about to pick up their buddy. Our first pickup is Patrick. Patrick in this analogy is our controller. Patrick is controlling the drive to try to maintain a steady course and stay within the lanes. Our driver is the plant. Now, the driver actually can't see what's in front of him because he's blindfolded, and therefore he needs the controller to help adjust the course of the drive to stay within the lanes. Now, let's say in this example, the driver veered a little bit to the right. As you can see, Patrick is not that sensitive. He's pretty chill. He's drinking his smoothie, and he tells the driver, adjust a little bit to the left. And they've now maintained back a steady course, and there has been overall stability in their drive. Now, our next pickup is SpongeBob. As you can see, SpongeBob is a much different type of controller than Patrick was. SpongeBob is very sensitive to minor changes in the course of the drive. So now let's say, similar to the previous example, the driver veered a little bit to the right, whereas Patrick guided the driver to adjust a little bit back to the left. SpongeBob shouts at the driver, "Turn left! Turn left!" The driver turns the steering wheel all the way to the left, and now they've veered completely off the road. As you can imagine, if you have an overly sensitive controller, this can continue to happen, whereas you were able to stay within the lanes when you had Patrick as your controller. Having SpongeBob, you're veering on and off the road with a completely unstable driving course. How do we tie all this together to better understand some sleep disorders? This is a modified figure from Hernandez and Sleep Breath. At the top is a normal loop gain example. So here is our carbon dioxide level that's at steady state. Here we have our disturbance. An example is when the car veered a little bit to the right. Now the chemoreceptors have detected this, and there is a normal ventilatory response. And as you can see, the carbon dioxide level remains at steady state and never falls below this apneic threshold, and ventilation is overall stable, or the car remains on a straight path within the lanes. Now in the bottom here, we have an example of a high loop gain. So here's our carbon dioxide level at steady state up until this moment of disturbance. The carbon dioxide level starts to decrease and it actually surpasses the apneic threshold. This is followed by an apnea. During this apnea, the carbon dioxide level starts to increase. Now remember, in a high loop gain model, the chemoreceptors are highly sensitive to changes in the carbon dioxide level outside of steady state. So then the chemoreceptors direct the lungs for a ventilatory response that ends up being exceedingly out of proportion, and the carbon dioxide level surpasses the normal steady state level, compared to in the top when the carbon dioxide level returns to steady state in a normal ventilatory response. So as you can see, this cyclical pattern of breathing in a patient with high loop gain contributes to ventilatory instability that can be seen in central sleep apnea. Let's return to the loop gain model in reference to patients who have central sleep apnea related to congestive heart failure. Now these patients have an enhanced carotid chemosensitivity. Remember, the chemoreceptors are measuring the change in the carbon dioxide level above or below steady state. This range has now reduced, making them much more sensitive, and thereby these patients can actually reach their apneic threshold more easily. Additionally, they have an enhanced ventilatory response, which we reference to in these ventilatory overshoots that are disproportionate to the original disturbance. Finally, patients who have congestive heart failure have a circulatory delay as a result of the reduced cardiac output, which prolongs the delivery of the carbon dioxide that the lungs produced back to the carotid bodies. As a result of this ventilatory instability, patients who have central sleep apnea related to congestive heart failure have this periodic breathing pattern that we can identify on their sleep studies. I hope this gave you a better understanding of loop gain and how this can be applied to certain sleep disorders. Now, as the great Fred Rogers used to say, you make each day a special day. I'll see you around.